Relax and take notes while I take totes of the marijuana smoke. Throw you in a choke, gun smoke, gun smoke. Biggie Smalls for mayor, the rap slayer, the hooker layer. Motherfucker, say your prayers. Hail Mary, full of grace. Smack the bitch in the face, take her Gucci bag and a North Face off her back. Jab her if she act funny with the money. Oh, you got me mistaken, honey. I don't wanna rape ya, I just want the paper, the visa, the pisha. I'm out like the vapors. Who's the one?
Nobody moves in this library. Nobody breathes. Not without Marcus saying so. That was true for 5 years. Until one quiet afternoon, a man named Keanu Reeves walked in, pulled a book off the shelf, and sat down like he owned the place. The 305-pound man who ran every inch of that room looked up slowly. Everyone watched. Nobody warned Keanu. They wanted to see what would happen next. If you want the full story every single day, hit subscribe right now. The prison library at Weston Correctional Facility was not a place most inmates visited voluntarily. It was a small, rectangular room at the end of cell block D, lined with shelves of donated paperbacks and outdated encyclopedias that nobody ever actually read. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The tables were bolted to the floor. It smelled like dust and old paper and something underneath it all that reminded you exactly where you were. For the past 5 years, that room had belonged to Marcus Cole. Marcus was not a librarian. He had no official role, no title, no permission from any guard or administrator. What he had was size, patience, and 5 years of slow, methodical presence. He weighed 305 pounds. He stood 6 feet and 3 inches tall. His shoulders filled a door frame the way a cork fills a bottle. He had found the quietest room in the building and made it his own. The library was perfect for Marcus because Marcus was not loud. He did not shout across the yard or bang on cell doors. He made his presence known with stillness. He would sit at the far corner table every single afternoon from 1 o'clock until 4 and read with the deliberate calm of a man who had nowhere to be and nothing to prove. Other inmates understood the message without it ever being spoken. The corner table was Marcus. The chair facing the door was Marcus. The shelf directly behind him, the one with the good paperbacks and the one working dictionary, that was Marcus too. You did not sit at his table. You did not take his books. For 5 years, not a single man had tested this arrangement. New arrivals were told on their first day. The library is open Tuesday through Saturday. The tables on the left side are yours. The right corner by the window, you leave that alone. Even the guards gave that corner a wide berth. There was an unspoken understanding that, as long as Marcus kept the peace in his section, nobody needed to make an issue of it. That understanding lasted exactly until the Tuesday afternoon that Keanu Reeves walked through the library door. Keanu had been at Weston for 11 days. He had come in quietly, processed through intake without incident, and spent his first week observing. He was lean, dark-haired, with the kind of stillness about him that some men read as weakness and others read as something harder to define. He had been assigned to cell block D, which meant he ate in the same cafeteria as Marcus, walked the same yard, and now had wandered into the same library. He moved along the shelves with calm focus, running one finger lightly across the spines, just reading titles. He passed the left side tables without sitting. He continued toward the back of the room. He reached the shelf directly behind the corner table and stopped. He tilted his head slightly, reading a title. Then he reached up and pulled the book from the shelf. The room went quiet in a way that rooms only go quiet when something is about to happen. Marcus had been watching since the moment Keanu walked in. He watched him pass the left side without stopping. He watched him approach the corner, and now he watched him stand there, holding a book from the shelf that belonged to the corner that belonged to Marcus, and he felt the specific, familiar tension of a line being approached by someone who either did not know it existed or did not care. Marcus closed his own book slowly. He set it flat on the table. He looked at Keanu with the expression of a man who has all the time in the world and is in no hurry to use it. Around the room, 4 other inmates had gone completely still. Nobody turned a page. The fluorescent lights buzzed. Somewhere far down the hall, a door slammed. Keanu looked at the book in his hand. Then he looked up and found Marcus looking at him. He did not look away. He did not put the book back. He pulled out the chair at the corner table, the one facing the door, and he sat down. One of the inmates near the window exhaled so quietly it was barely a sound at all. Marcus studied Keanu the way a man studies something he is trying to accurately measure. He had seen new arrivals come into his corner with something to prove. He knew what that looked like. It had a specific energy, a forward lean, a performance built for the audience watching from the left side tables. Keanu had none of that. He had opened the book and was reading it. That was what Marcus could not categorize. There was no performance, no sideways glance to check if anyone was watching. He was simply sitting in a chair, reading a book on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. Marcus stood up. When Marcus rose from a chair, it happened the way a building is constructed, deliberately, in stages, until the full structure was present. He stepped around the table and stopped 2 feet from where Keanu was sitting. His shadow covered the page Keanu was reading. Keanu looked up. "That seat," Marcus said, "is taken." Keanu looked at him for a moment. His expression did not change. He looked back down at the book and turned the page. The 4 inmates at the left side tables had stopped pretending to do anything else. Marcus placed one hand on the table. He leaned forward slightly, not aggressively, but with the full weight of 5 years of unchallenged authority behind the movement. "I am going to say it one more time," Marcus said. "That seat is taken." Keanu closed the book. He set it on the table with the same calm deliberateness that Marcus had used 2 minutes earlier. He looked up at Marcus without rushing, without flinching, without any of the visible recalibration that men usually showed when 305 pounds of Marcus Cole leaned over them. "I do not see your name on it," Keanu said. The room did not make a sound. What happened next was not loud. It was not fast. It was 2 men in a very small space, each of them completely certain of something, and only one of them was right. Marcus reached out and put his hand on the back of the chair. Keanu stood up at the same moment, not backward, not retreating, but rising to his feet with the steady, unhurried movement of a man who had already decided exactly how much space he was willing to give up, and had determined that amount to be nothing at all. They stood 18 inches apart. Marcus had 6 inches and 140 pounds on Keanu. The math, by any conventional measure, was not close. But Marcus had been in enough rooms with enough men to know that math was not always the whole story. There was something in the way Keanu was standing. Not a fighting stance, not a threat display, just a stillness so complete and so grounded that it occupied the space around it like a wall that happened to be a person. The 4 inmates at the left side tables were not breathing. For a long moment, nothing happened. Marcus looked at Keanu. Keanu looked at Marcus. The fluorescent lights buzzed. The distant sounds of the prison moved through the walls like weather. Then Marcus picked up his book from the table. He walked to the left side of the room and sat down at one of the other tables. He opened his book. He began reading. Nobody said anything for almost a full minute. Then, one by one, the other inmates quietly returned to whatever they had been doing, and the library went back to its ordinary sounds. Keanu sat back down in the corner chair. He opened his book. He read for 2 hours. He came back the next day, and the day after that. Marcus never returned to the corner table. 2 in the weeks that followed. The story moved through Weston the way all significant stories move through closed institutions, quietly and completely. Every inmate in cell Block D had a version of it. Most of them had not been in the library that afternoon. All of them told the story as if they had. What stayed consistent across every version was not the details. It was the image. A 305-pound man who had held a corner of that prison for 5 years, standing up, walking away, sitting somewhere else. Not because he was forced to, not because anything physical had happened, but because something in the 18 inches between him and Keanu Reeves had told him, with complete clarity, that the calculation he had been running for 5 years no longer added up. Keanu never talked about it. He did not explain himself to the inmates who approached him with questions. He thanked people politely and returned to whatever he had been doing. Authority is not a possession, it is an agreement. And agreements can be renegotiated by anyone willing to simply sit down and read a book. The corner chair by the window stayed Keanu's for the rest of his time at Weston. Nobody ever questioned it. Not once. What Keanu Reeves demonstrated that Tuesday afternoon was not strength in the way that word is usually understood inside prison wall. It was something older and quieter and considerably harder to manufacture. It was the absolute absence of the need to perform. Marcus had built his authority on the certainty that everyone around him was calculating the cost of resistance and deciding it was too high. That calculation required the other person to be running numbers at all. Keanu was not running numbers. He wanted to read a book. He sat down to read a book. The fact that the chair happened to belong to the most physically imposing man in cell block D was, to him, entirely beside the point. There is a kind of composure that comes not from the absence of awareness, but from a deep and settled acceptance of consequence. It does not announce itself. It simply occupies space with a completeness that makes the performance of dominance feel like exactly what it is, a performance. And performances require an audience that is willing to be impressed. Keanu was not willing to be impressed. He was willing to read. That distinction changed everything in that room. Real authority, the kind that lasts, is never taken. It is recognized,